All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course. I do see almost 300 people are waiting, so I have a feeling that with chat moving, it's probably proper. Just a second here, though. Yeah, okay, I've got my audio muted. I need to make sure of that when I live stream because I don't really want, to talk to myself. I do that enough as is. We've got a lot to talk about today. Muslim American activists launch abandon Biden campaign over Israel stance. Yeah, the high taxes, the anti-gunnery, suppression of freedom of speech and of privacy, attempted denigration of states' rights. None of those things mattered. How dare you send money to Israel, though? I mean, I happen to agree with them. I have no problem with abandoning Biden. Every voting bloc should do that, but it is a little bit strange, the priorities that are in mind. A mysterious ancient grave with a sword and mirror belonged to a woman. The find may add to growing evidence that suggests women long ago could be warriors. There are other things that I could suggest. We'll be talking about that as well. We've got some revisionism with archaeology going on now. The Never Back Down PAC now has parted ways with its third CEO in less than 2 weeks. We'll definitely be talking about that as well. Desantis is having some problems. Nikki Haley got the Coke endorsement, of course, or whatever it's worth. It's worth a lot of money. As far as votes, a little bit less maybe. So they're still hashing it out for second place. Yes, Donald Trump will win the Iowa primary, by the way, caucus. We'll be talking about that. Irish senator under fire for advocating bill to restrict free speech. Yes, one critic calls the anti-hate law draconian, adding it will have severe implications. Well, of course it will. That's the point. That's the whole point. We've got updates in Gaza. Israel has now invaded southern Gaza. Of course, before it was mainly operating in the northern part, had basically split the Gaza Strip in half and then moved north and warned people to evacuate south. Now they're attacking the south. There's nowhere left to evacuate to. So we'll be talking about that as well. And then finally, of course, missile used as garden ornament for 74 years, detonated by bomb squad. Yes, we've got a funny story from Britain. I figured that I want to have at least one story a day that's just jovial. It's just something that's hilarious. And you can't get more ultimately British than using a World War I explosive munition as a garden ornament. Apparently also shaking dirt off of your trowel on the still primed and ready to explode weapon. And thankfully it never exploded. We'll talk about that a little bit more, though. That's just a funny story. I'm having some fun. Today is a good day. I actually got proper sleep for the first time in 3 or 4 weeks or thereabouts. Between the cat and the baby, it's a little bit difficult. Anyway, we'll launch right into the news in a second once I do these settings here on StreamYard. Yes, we must do that, of course. I see Anton is there along with all of the others. The usual gang of goofies. Shlomo Goldenstein, could I get a clank for my wife's father? He passed away early Saturday morning. I used to call him Papa Pete. Clanks for Papa Pete. I would clank along myself, but at the moment I've got energy drink. And also a blurry webcam. Oh boy, it's going to be one of those days, isn't it? No. Many such cases. Yeah, so rest in peace, Papa Pete. He gets a farewell clank from all the clankers. You can officially take it to the bank that there is a clank. Will be It's time for the news. Muslim American activists launch abandon Biden campaign over Israel stance. Again, I talked about that this morning. A bunch of Islamic advocates decided to go to Dearborn, Michigan. This is an important state, although it's kind of on the nose that they decided to gather in Dearborn. I think there might have been a reason for that. And they've decided to castigate the Biden campaign and say that they're not going to support it. Now, Islamic Americans tend to lean heavily left because they also tend to be ethnic minorities. But now Biden can't necessarily count on their votes coming in. And that's a real big fucking problem for the Biden campaign in Michigan specifically. Michigan is one of the swing states that's up for grabs. It is almost a 50-50 right at this particular moment in polling. Trump has pulled ahead in Georgia. It looks like he'll probably grab that state. That's a big one, by the way, because of the number of electors that it has. Michigan is another big one. It's got a large population. If Joe Biden can't win Michigan because even 1 million or even 500,000 Muslims decide not to vote for him, they're not going to vote for Trump necessarily, but they just don't vote for him. He can't win. He no longer has a path to victory. Doesn't matter how many ballot printers you have. It would be probably impossible for him to actually have an electoral victory. I'm appreciative of this. I will point out, however, that the Islamists in the United States decided to wait until specifically it was about support for Israel, which was self-assured. You knew that they were going to do that. It wasn't until that moment that they decided to call it quits with Biden. They've stopped riding with Biden. So the fact that people are taking out second jobs in order to avoid debt, or taking out credit card debt to avoid starving to death, the fact that prices are up, wages are down, everything is wonky with the Biden economy, the open border, various wars, etc. None of these things phased this particular community until Joe Biden decided to send billions of dollars to Israel. That was the sticking point. Well, I mean, I agree with you on one hand. It's good. Anything that harms Joe Biden's reelection campaign is a good thing. So I don't have a problem with that. And it is good that there are people that have decided to stop riding with Biden because he doesn't deserve for anyone to be in the passenger seat, because he's going to crash, because he's old and decrepit and has no idea what he's doing. In fact, he's not even really running the country. The fact, though, that you waited for this particular moment, as opposed to souring on him for more civic reasons, like, the damage that he's done in the United States as opposed to the damage he's doing in Palestine, is a little bit telling, is a little bit bizarre, I would say. I, of course, never supported Biden. I wished him well originally. You will remember this, by the way, clankers. I did not want Joe Biden to be a failure because I want what's best for the American people. Democrat administration, Republican administration, dude, chick, somewhere in between, old or young, black or white, it doesn't matter to me. I want what's best for the American people. What I did warn, though, was that I didn't see good things were particularly ahead for the American people. Indeed, that's been the fact. He's ruined the economy. He's ruined our foreign policy beyond all recall, basically, at this point. The border is basically Swiss cheese. And then you have a group of people who's abandoning him. I support you. This is a good thing. I think if, again, you can get even a few 100,000 people in Michigan not to vote for Biden, probably he loses the state and loses re-election. It could be literally Muslim Americans that denied Joe Biden his re-election bid, which I would find hilarious. Oh boy, I'd probably have 5 videos up within an hour if that ends up being the case. But it is kind of strange that it wasn't for any interior civic reason that the abandoned Biden thing happened. With CARE and all of these other groups associated with these individuals explicitly, by the way. Minnesota would be affected too, as well, by the way. To an extent, Wisconsin, not so much. Really, we're talking about Michigan mainly, Minnesota, and kind of sort of Pennsylvania's auxiliaries. And it doesn't really trickle down anywhere else. Maybe like a Virginia, some state that's within a couple of points. While it's amusing, it is funny that the reason why the abandoned Biden thing happened was because of a foreign policy failure. He's had many of them before, as opposed to failing consistently in interior policy. I find that discomforting. The result is good. I don't disagree with the idea of abandoning Biden. Absolutely. Muslims should not vote for Joe Biden, nor should anybody else. Jews shouldn't be voting for him. White people, black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, nobody should be voting for Biden. He shouldn't get a single vote. He shouldn't even be voting for himself at this point. Now, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But the reason why the abandoned Biden thing came about, was just a little bit strange now, isn't it? It's like, oh, yeah, he's fucked everything up. That's okay. No shit, he gave money to Israel like every other president has, including Trump, admittedly. Well, that's a little bit too far. The last campaign sent $10. No chat. Thank you very much. Tommy C. Heading to the hospital, have a mass removed from my abdomen. That's the bad news. The good news is I'll be able to tune into your show every day while recovering in the hospital. Well, you could do worse. At least you've got entertainment to go with. I wish you well in your recovery, by the way, Tommy. Maxwell JW. Venezuelan video when? Oh, yeah, I should probably look into what's happening in Venezuela again at some point. Alan Smithy. Styx's books make good Christmas gifts. Hashtag not sponsored. Yes, they do. By the way, link pinned in the chat if you're watching on YouTube and in the description cross-platform. Yeah, you should buy some edited works. Absolutely. They still sell like hotcakes. It's a significant proportion of my income, actually. Most people think I only make it on political content. Most of my edited works have nothing to do with politics at all. Aquafan, Godzilla -1 was easily one of the best films of the year. No wokeness, made by Toho, not Hollywood. Post-World War II, and it critiqued Japan's government, not the USA. Great human story, cool kaiju monster. I haven't seen it, although I guess you're giving it a recommendation. Maybe I'll watch it. I like Godzilla, but I like the old campy Godzilla movies, like versus Mothra or something like that. Something from the 50s, 60s, 70s. The old ones that often there wasn't really much of a plot, and that was sort of the point. The animation was very, very poor, but it was hilarious. I like those old ones. High pot thesis. Second thing Muslims got right. First being anti-usury. Yeah, Islamic loans do make a little bit more sense when you think about it. Daniel P. Styx, help me propose to my girlfriend. Sarah, would you please marry Daniel, please? And tell her we need to make lots of clanker babies. Clank, okay. I guess Daniel's trying to propose to his girlfriend. So, Sarah, you should marry the dude. He's a clanker. You know, what more of an endorsement can you possibly get of his character? Gotta make some babies there. Courier Jackalope 91. I finally caught you live again. Just wanted to say I started writing again, and your edition of Forbidden Knowledge helped out big time with my story. What's your favorite cryptid? Ooh, favorite cryptid. Geez, that's actually a hard one. I'm drawing a blank. As far as the mainline cryptids, I really like the story of Bigfoot. Because there is at least a limited plausibility to it, unlike like the Loch Ness Monster or something. I mean, Champ would be a close second, but that's because it's local to Vermont. I really like the Pigman of Stowe because it's one of those classic cautionary tale stories that's told to children to keep them from going out at night and fucking around, literally fucking each other, drinking and stuff like that, to keep them in the house, basically. The Pigman of Stowe supposedly was a deformed individual born, I think, in the 40s, if I remember correctly, that looked sort of piggish because he was deformed and would wander around and, you know, kill you with an axe, basically, if you went out at night. You snuck out with your boyfriend or something like that. Cautionary tales are a bit of folklore that I really, really enjoy. Just saying. Scrody Johnson, I was recently recommended to your channel. Some solid takes. Subbed. Keep up the good work. I shall, and thank you very much. Richard Z, what is the demon that you feel is very real and very dangerous to most people, and how do you make sure it doesn't come for you? I can only vouch for Stolas, and I don't believe that Stolas is dangerous. Now, I have literally physically seen this particular entity, which is reckoned a demon within Judeo-Christian lore. It's been nothing but helpful to me as far as I go. I don't believe that demons are dangerous. No, I don't believe you're going to be possessed or anything like that. If you're talking about evil, feckless spirits, I don't know, burn some herbs or something. There's 10 trillion fucking works on that particular topic. Sparky, greetings, fearless leader, and greetings to you as well. G Phaser, Bitcoin up to 40K. Let's go. Yes, my crypto portfolio is doing well right now. Yeah, it's it's popping. I'm very happy about this. I may or may not sell some of it at some point. It sort of depends on where it rises to. I mean, I'm not in need of money, but at the same time, it's good to have money. Senor Faces, what's your favorite Tao Fumo? Mine, Cerno, and you. I don't know. I know literally nothing about the Fumo plushie thing. Melkor, thoughts on Brian Swenson joining the Trump campaign? He was one of Vivek's team. I wouldn't be surprised if some people from the Desantis campaign end up there. I was not aware of this. I'll have to look it up. If you can DM me if there's a story or something like that, DM me on Twitter. Aquafan, Godzilla -1 is a story about how government sucks and citizens need to take things into their own hands. So like a V for Vendetta sort of thing. We could use more of those stories. Definitely. Let's see. Over on Rumble. Sigil Stone, dropping Biden is good, but I'm more concerned about the presence of an Islamic caliphate in the U.S. influencing our government. That doesn't lead to good places. Yeah, but really it's limited to Dearborn and a handful of other locations, so I'm not particularly worried, at least at this juncture. Chirocon, Trump needs to wear a bulletproof vest on camera, make it obvious that he's being targeted with violence. It would be good for his campaign. Yeah, you know what the DeSantis fans would say? Oh, look at this weakling. He's not willing to take a bullet for democracy. You know that they would use that. Absolute goddamn lootly. Anyway, we'll get to some archaeological revisionism here, because this is something that's actually near and dear to me. I studied anthropology when I was at UVM and at Castleton State University, formerly Castleton State College when I was there. A mysterious ancient grave with a sword and a mirror belonged to a woman. The find may add to growing evidence that suggests women long ago could be warriors. Yes, Xena Warrior Princess was actually real. A roughly 2,000-year-old woman with a potentially violent streak. Yeah, it's one for women's lib there. Emerged from skeletal rubble found on an island off southwestern England's coast. A jumble of tooth and bone fragments in a late Iron Age grave belonged to a young woman who was interred with items that included a sword, shield, and bronze mirror, researchers report in the December Journal of Archaeological Science. By the way, I do not discount the actual finding. Now, let's think about the possibilities here. Possibility number one, her husband was a warrior. He died in battle as a person of some bravery. She decided to be buried with his sword because there was nobody else to inherit the sword. Possibility number two, the positing here is correct. She was actually a warrior, or at least she used a sword at some point. It was a shield maiden of some sort, and therefore was buried with the sword. It's much like that Scandinavian find, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago. They found a ring that had Arabic on it and was Islamic in nature, in a Viking grave. And they said, oh, well, there were Islamic Vikings. And people pointed out, okay, well, the Vikings raided as far south as the Mediterranean, and so it's entirely possible that they picked this up when they were raiding some other group. And the Viking involved, wouldn't have known even what the ring said. He just thought it looked cool. So he decided to wear it because he fucking killed the person that owned the ring and probably cut it off his goddamn hand. And people thought, of course, this is evidence of Vikings that were practicing this other religion. And it's not really evidence of that at all. The same is true here. It's entirely possible that you had females that did go into battle. In fact, it's very likely. It was not common. It would have been exceptionally rare. Number one, they probably would not have been accepted under Norse custom in a company with other people. Number two, basically they were homekeepers for the most part. That's just sort of the way that it was back then. Now you can say, okay, we've progressed, but now women can do anything that a man can do. That's fine. But we're talking about 2,000 years ago in this particular story. The most likely reason for this is that her husband or boyfriend or whatever died in battle, and she decided that because of his valor, his bravery, she wanted to be symbolically buried with the sword. That's the most likely outcome. And this is not the first time, by the way, that a story effectively like this has been aired. Last year, there was a similar story. Well, we think that this individual might have been transgendered, actually, because she was buried with a sword in male armor. Yeah, that's one way to interpret it. There are a number of other ways to interpret it that make more canonical sense when you look at Norse customs a la the era of antiquity. It probably had nothing to do with feeling male, like a Joan of Arc situation. Like, I'm surprised they haven't claimed that Joan of Arc was transgendered or something like that. So in other words, a woman can't wield a sword without being trans, is basically what they're saying. It's impossible for them to have gone into battle. It's also possible that the men were all gone. They were out hunting or something, and got massacred. They were at war, something along those lines. And so women had no choice but to rise up and defend themselves because you're surrounded by tribal enemies. Yeah, of course, a woman might take up the sword under such circumstances. Apparently, this was a young woman, so she died fairly young. Whether it's from battle wounds or not, I don't believe the article really addresses. But being buried with a sword are you saying that if someone is buried with a weapon, that makes them automatically male or male-ish? And that it's not possible for anybody else to, like, in my fucking will, I'm going to be buried with my sword. That's literally in my will. If I were female, I would still like swords probably, and probably still be buried with one. I would hesitate to think that an archaeologist 500 years later excavates the decrepit graveyard that I've been, rotting in for 500 years and says, well, that individual clearly was transgendered and a warrior. They must have actually fought. Have you tested this blade to see whether it was even used in battle? It could have been ceremonial. This could be some tribe that simply decided that people should be buried with swords or something like that. But that's not even mentioned in the goddamn article. It's historical revisionism. It's bullshit, basically. I've studied archaeology in college, and I understand this to be lies, damn lies, and statistics. It's also definitely not the norm, it's the exception. Let's see. I did G Phaser. Melkor. Oh, I did your chat too, actually. I went too far above. BW, you still think American Empire is not ending? Yes, I think we've got another 100 years or so. Things will be fine. We're just going through a rough patch. Some roads have potholes in them. The government ain't good at filling them in. Drew and Albane, Joan of Arc. They did that already. Yeah, quite clearly, she was a transgendered lesbian, as opposed to simply taking up arms for the cause that she believed in. Also, she wasn't particularly woke. She was praying all the time and stuff, so they might want to back off that one. Melkor, as a Hema practitioner, I'll tell you now, women can't fight men with swords. Oh, they can. It's just they tend to have less body mass, and so it would be a little bit harder. Men and women, statistically speaking, are not the same physically. The fact that a woman would be buried with a sword could indicate that she did participate in battle. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying that there are other explanations that also could count for that particular burial. RF Wayand. Hey, Sticks, my new sci-fi novel is out for Tuna. Thanks for the call out. Richard F. Wayand on Amazon. That's Wayand, W-E-Y-A-N-D. So you can look him up on Amazon, find his new sci-fi novel. King of Biltong, good morning from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. Free shipping for your biltong using code STICKS on www.landofbiltong.com and www.antonsusa.com. Thanks to Stephen, Rebecca, JD, and Mitchell for visiting us. Hashtag Clank Nation. God damn, you get a whole bunch of people that want your meat. I'm not surprised, though. That Wagyu was great. The bison, though, yeah, I'll simp for the bison. Get like 10 packs of it. When I show up, you're going to sell out of it on the same day. Wasted Bonehead. Good morning from the grave. I was buried with my sword so that I could fight off the demons in the afterlife. Yeah, I want to be buried with my sword just because it's cool. Sigil Stone. A recent archaeological dig found a large ancient graveyard. They kept digging up trigender pyrofoxes, but strangely no males or females. Odd. I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to. It's probably some sort of joke. Sparky, Muslims, including Arabs, were encouraged to travel. Some ended up hanging with the Vikings and wrote about it. Yeah, there was trade and travel back then. Believe it or not, people back with wind-powered ships actually did circumnavigate significant parts of the world. Lev Polyakov, I just finished my first bag of Anton's Biltong. I can't tell you how full I am with salted meat. I'd eat 2 more bags if I could. I'm sure I'd be sick. There's a lot of beef in my stomach. Thanks, Anton's. Yeah, Anton has some good shit. I'm going to get some of that goddamn bison. Next news story. Pro-DeSantis super PAC never back down. Parts with CEO of 9 days in yet another shakeup. Yes, they're on their third CEO now. They also lost their chairman, who is actually Adam Laxalt. You'll remember his name probably from the 2020 election. He lost, but then he joined the DeSantis campaign. I guess he was furious at Trump for some unknown reason, even though it was the Uniparty that denied him proper funding and backing. He said that he wanted to spend more time with his family. I see through it. I think it's more he was literally DeSantis' roommate at one point. They're long-term friends. That's why he got on the PAC, by the way. But he realizes that DeSantis is not going to win in the primary, let alone the general election. So when he said, well, I wish the campaign well, I fully support it. I think that they'll win. They'll win in Iowa. Don't worry. But I need to spend more time with my family. That's his way of telling DeSantis, hey, you're not going to win this campaign. I like you. I'm your friend. I'm not going to stab you in the back. Don't worry. We're still friends. But I can't keep doing this because I don't want my name tied to your failed campaign. The Never Back Down PAC, by the way, is literally the biggest PAC supporting DeSantis. They lost their chairman. They've now 3 times lost their CEO. They're basically hemorrhaging support. It's only a matter of time before probably it's so crippled that it just falls apart. There are other PACs that operate on behalf of DeSantis, but they don't have the kind of money, the fundraising potential as a PAC that's run by Adam Laxalt, because he's actually got name recognition. Without that, Ron DeSantis probably is at risk of coming in second in Iowa, which immediately destroys his run. Trump will win Iowa, by the way. I know that you see a lot of bravado, especially from the DeSantis campaign with regards to the state. No, it's going to be Trump. He's getting the advantage of technical incumbency. Trump will come in first. It's a battle for second to see who can stay in until Super Tuesday. At this point, with what's happening with this PAC and with the Koch endorsement of Nikki Haley, giving her a quick injection of ad money mainly, it could be that Haley ends up being the one that's in until Super Tuesday. She drops out afterward when she fails to win a single state. Trump is up by 25-30 in Iowa. He's up by a similar margin in New Hampshire. He's up actually a little bit more in Nikki Haley's home state of South Carolina. Nevada, we're not 100% sure. I assume it's about similar, 20 to 30 points. But we don't have any good polling for it because the pollsters are, for some odd reason, ignoring Nevada right now. Going into Super Tuesday, I expect Trump to have clinched. He'll have won all 4 of the starting states. It'll be inevitable. Lord help goddamn Ron DeSantis if he's nuts enough to stay in through Super Tuesday because he loses his home state. Trump is arguably up 40 points in the state of Florida. If he loses his own home state, then he can kiss his congressional career fucking goodbye. If I were Ron DeSantis, I would stay in for the first few states. See how I do. If I can at least edge Haley, take second in Iowa, edge around in New Hampshire, I can say, hey, I did my part. And then after Nevada, I can say, well, I'm dropping out. Now, the numbers just aren't there. I may not agree with it, but the party has decided that Trump is going to be the nominee. I'm going to endorse him. You can do a half-hearted sort of half-assed endorsement, of course, because you're expecting him to lose, I think, if you're DeSantis. But you've beaten Haley, including in her home state, probably. If you win Iowa and New Hampshire, probably DeSantis would get just enough of a boost to get over in South Carolina so he can humiliate Nikki Haley. He'd get kudos, by the way, from me for doing that. But it doesn't look like he's going to even be able to do that. He was effectively the person to beat, at least in the second place slot for the race, and he just made too many mistakes. If his PAC collapses before Iowa, where's he going to get the money? Like, his own campaign can't fundraise enough money after that initial splurging, which his campaign manager was canned for a reason. They had to fire half their staff. If you can't raise enough money to match the Koch brothers' money, and you're way, way behind Trump, so you're not really realistically expecting to beat him, where are you as a candidate? If he comes in third in Iowa, he's got real goddamn big problems. And if he's crazy enough to stay in through Super Tuesday and lose to Donald Trump in Florida, especially when Haley could potentially edge him out for second place in his own home state, he is insane. But I mean, I almost expected at this point because, I mean, look at his campaign strategy. It's all over the place. It doesn't even make sense at this point. Ron DeSantis, one thing I'll give to him. Here's a fig leaf. I'll go Bill Mitchell mode. Bill Mitchell the other day apologizing to MAGA effectively and saying, well, you know, I want to be Bill the Unifier Mitchell. Okay. Apology accepted, Bill, by the way. I made a new tech exclusive this morning on the topic. Let me be the opposite of Bill Mitchell here, from the pro-Trump side, making the same argument. At the very least, Ron DeSantis has some qualifications. He is reasonably well-spoken. He seems to have a decent family life. He's not a warmonger, and he caused leftoids to go into several conniption fits, especially with his Martha's Vineyard thing. I respect that. I have no problem with Ron DeSantis absent HB 269, which I said was a red line, and I hold by that. I wouldn't be able to support him because of that. That being said, at least he has qualifications and some redeeming value. Nikki Haley doesn't. I can't find a single redeeming value to Nikki Haley. What I want is for Trump to win the nomination. But by God, Ron, can you hold it together long enough to at least crush Nikki Haley? To force her into third place and humiliate her so that she just fucking goes away and preferably permanently outside of politics? I mean, you know, you don't need the Koch money. If anything, if DeSantis had gotten the Koch brothers money, I would have looked down on him for it. I actually look at him and I say, well, at least he didn't get endorsed by the Koch brothers. The most warmongering morons in all of U.S. politics, practically on the right wing. I don't see that as a bad thing. Hammer Nikki Haley, knock her out of the way, punch her in the goddamn cunt, and get her out of the goddamn race as quickly as possible. Retire before Super Tuesday from the primaries, go back to being governor, and you'll probably end up with a congressional stint. You'll probably be able to take a Senate seat, a House seat, or something like that. Ron DeSantis still can have a political career. He's redeemable. Nikki Haley, not so much. She's strictly federal level politics and has basically burned every bridge with everyone she possibly could, other than the donor base. I would love to see Ron DeSantis beat the living crap out of her on a debate stage as well. The last time around, though, it was mainly just we hate Trump. Here, let me tell you the top 5 reasons that I hate Trump more than you do. That's not going to work, my dude. You're not gonna even come in second in Iowa. You might not even come in second in your own home state unless you get your shit together. And it's because you know that he's not unintelligent. Ron DeSantis is at least an intelligent person. He has his personality quirks, with the boot lifts and bullshit like that nobody really cares about. But he's just not with it. It just doesn't even make sense. He was so with it months ago before he jumped into the race. Had his shit together, was doing all sorts of shit that was pissing the left off to no end. That's why he had the name recognition. Reelected by goddamn 20 points and crazy shit like that in a state that, you know, a couple of cycles ago basically was a 50-50 sum proposition until Trump arrived. And he burned all of that away. Doc Holliday, if I show empathy for or raise my concerns about the innocent children being carpet bombed in Gaza, does that make me an anti-Semite? Absolutely, you Jew hater. I'm just joking, of course. Sparky, it makes us clankers cringe when you say we when referencing the U.S. At least wait till we invade and take it over. Senor Faces, Bidenflation, but the fetishistic one? Thoughts? I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. My apologies. Bidenflation. Bara, Fetterman, Tiny Tim 2024, problem solved. Oh, Christ. Not a banned account. Will we have another lockdown for election 2024? I think they were trying that, Hong Kong, but failed with the Chinese pneumonia cases that we can't elaborate on too much on YouTube without getting banned. Doc Holliday, DeSantis obviously has Napoleon complex with his high-heeled boots, is much too dangerous to be president. He would probably go on a power trip. I wouldn't feel necessarily that he's dangerous so much as strategically inept. I have a problem with his apparent lack of strategy, his tact. The way in which he runs his campaign is not indicative of the kind of person that we need to counterbalance against the Uniparty. Awesome Diesel, Salty Clanker, clank, clank, goddamn fucking clank. Claudius 1964. Good morning, Sticks. I think the whole idea of Desantis getting anywhere was shot out of the water because of the platform shoes stick. No, he was already collapsing before that. Really, it had to do with the fact that he got in too late. When Indictment Gate happened, he waited 3 days to weigh in on it. That was point number one. Point number two, then he decided to sideswipe Trump. That was a big mistake. I think that was the biggest mistake he made. Then when he announced his campaign in the first place, he did it on Twitter Spaces, which you will remember I praised as a novel idea. But they should have tested it first. They should have made sure that it was actually going to work, and it didn't. And so that's as much of a shiner for Twitter as it is for Ron DeSantis. Awesome Diesel. Please give a shout out for Acme Diesel Wood Chippers. Excellent for lovers of gated pizza. All right, Acme Wood Chippers. If you like gated pizza, you will apparently like them. Pumpkin Fire Crafts. Good morning, Clankers. Coupon code has been extended on PFC until next Sunday until midnight PST. Good on anything in the store. I just added some antique spoons made in the USA. Yes, we've got Pumpkin Fire Crafts, much like with Anton's. Link in the description. You can buy some cool merch. We have belt chains, keychains, bookmarks, which I need to get one of because I could use a dedicated bookmark, as well as spoons, all of which have the Ouroboros logo on them. Don't worry. Aussie's Robots. Morning, Sticks, Clankers. Ever wondered why there's a 1%? It's because 99% are seemingly dolts voting for their own demise, like in the entire West. Yeah, it does play a role. It is a participation sport, our political system. Alan Tenaz. I heard Ron DeSantis makes his meatballs short and small, but can't confirm. I will say this. There is something to be said for making the meatballs small as opposed to like the big-ass ones that you get like at Sbarro's. I've told this story about the time that I wolfed down that meatball sub, by the way. My dad was like, Tarl, cut it out. He was disgusted. I literally shoved the sandwich in my mouth. It was really good, and I was really hungry. And I just start gnawing away at it, and I'm like working it through my throat and just half chewing it. I had half that sandwich done before he finished his first bite, and he was disgusted. Man, that was great. I wish that I had a video of that particular incident. That was when I was like 15 or something. So, you know, you're in your young teens. If you're a male especially, you eat like a fucking shark. It was great. Awoo Patrol. I think the most appropriate term is cunt punt. I've heard that one. Next news story. Irish senator under fire for advocating bill to restrict free speech. One critic calls Ireland's anti-hate law draconian, adding it will have severe implications. A speech delivered in June, so this is a while ago as far as the speech, by an Irish lawmaker, get me Lucky Charms, shenanigans, who said the work of legislatures is about restricting freedoms in the name of common good, has gone viral with criticism on both sides of the Atlantic. Yes, this is the sort of thing that I like. You've got an incident where somebody months and months ago, almost half a year, says something totally off the chain, totally wrong, totally immoral, totally unethical, totally anti-West, totally anti-freedom. But then months later, it goes viral and everyone just like flips out about it. So I don't think the bill will pass in the end, actually. The legislation basically would be like, if you criticize somebody who is of the wrong skin color, you go to jail. That's basically the idea. Conor McGregor, by the way, actually posting on Twitter not that long ago that he wants to be the president of Ireland. He was posting a picture of himself raising a drink and stuff. You do worse. He seems to be more with it than the Irish government now, doesn't he? This dude's been beaten in the head for a living for years, and yet he's still more sane than any other member of the Irish government. Yeah, let him be your leader. They'd probably do a better job. At the very least, there'd be an attempt. I mean, we've got look at the slew of people that have gotten into office over the last few years. You got people like Donald Trump. Donald Trump had no political experience. He was best known for The Apprentice and building, skyscrapers and shit like that. He had no experience within politics other than rubbing elbows with politicians. He did a good job. You got plenty of people. Milei, I think, had relatively limited political experience. It was more of a firebrand than anything else, more on the activistic side. You've got this story over and over again. I think that Conor McGregor would be a good leader for Ireland, actually, if only to secure your culture, because you've only got one Ireland. You've got a relatively small island. You don't even control all of it. That's the one place in the world where you've really got Irish culture. Why don't you safeguard the Blarney Stone and the Lucky Charms and all your cool folklore, which I've fucking edited from 3 or 4 different works, actually, and be Irish, because that's what people appreciate. If I go to Ireland, I want some food that was stewed for 6 or 7 hours on a slow cook. I don't want to eat McDonald's. If I go to Ireland, I want to see Irish people. I don't want to see a bunch of people from other fucking cultures. It's fine to be a tourist. It's fine to be an expat to a degree. That's acceptable. But when people come into your country and they deliberately don't assimilate, when they spurn your culture, they lambaste it, they insult it openly, that's when it becomes a problem. This is my thought for the United States as well. Bring us your tired and poor, but when the tired and poor come here, don't, badmouth the actual culture. Yeah, badmouth the government all you want. I'm not an apologist or a bootlicker. Fuck the government. If anything, the government's the problem on both ends. But appreciate the civic construct that you're existing under. That's basically all people are asking in most cases. If you spurn that particular advice, if you don't go along with the civic culture and subculture thereof, then you're going to get ethnonats. You're not going to have civnats like me. You're not going to have people that want populistic reform. You're going to have people that want purges. I've warned and warned for years that Europe especially is primed to go down that particular road. Get people into office that will safeguard your culture, reduce the social alienation, and keep Europe European in its various respective components. The Irish, the Italians, the Polish, the Hungarians, the Greeks, the Turks, everybody else, have your culture. Keep your culture unique. There are ways to blend in a cosmopolitan manner, and there's plenty of trade and travel and tourism to do, but keep your culture as is, because your culture is beautiful. It's worth celebrating. What the fuck is so difficult about that? If you spurn that, you're going to end up with these governments getting overthrown by either far right or far left groups that are authoritarian. It's happened before. It happened during the social alienation phase of the early 20th century already. Look at the Weimar Republic, for example. It's happened before. It can happen again. People have become so decadent they don't think that it can. Absolutely. Conor McGregor for Irish president sounds better than the alternative. As far as anyone that's proposing to denigrate liberal free speech laws in favor of not hurting people's fifis, well, fuck you. Go and die. A bunch of retards. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's even still in the legislature there. Of course, this is a 6-month-old story, technically speaking, till it went viral. But why don't you resign and do your people a favor? Musically assured destruction. The Biden shills on TW are freaking out about how we can't allow the alternative to win. Check it out. The salt is bountiful. Oh, they've been crying salty tears the whole time. I'm McLovin' it, by the way, every single day. It gives a little bit of pep to my step, you may have noticed. Corto Maltese. Lunacoin is coming back up. I poured about 7K into it and watched it drop to 1.4, but now it's surging back. I'm happy. I traded out most of my crypto for Bitcoin. I just decided to go with the long-term winner. Hungry Bone Dog. Just made some food. Luckily, I won't need any bones to gnaw on today. Kenshi is a game you'd have loved if you weren't a dad. Too time-consuming. Yeah, I mean, I would play Victoria 2 as well. Yeah, but I don't have time for it. Victoria 2, at least it's a strategy game. It's fun. Rockstar Podcast. Upcoming holiday cooking ideas found on Rockstar Podcast at Rockstar Falcor. Just dropped my favorite Polish potato dumpling recipe. By the way, the Hungarian peasant stew recipe from this book, Old World Feast, of course, by Julia Follin, that's the Golden One's wife, is spectacular. You should make it. I would recommend adding a little bit more caraway, though, than the recipe calls for, just because I like caraway. Make it. Trust me. And don't skimp on slow brewing that for hours, by the way. Hungry Bone Dog. How could Gavin Newsom ever win the presidency? I don't think that he can. If he can't out-debate Ron DeSantis, then I don't think he has a political future, actually, outside of California. I think that we've dodged a bullet on that one. Mike Rindeau. Double Irish with Dutch sandwich. Globalist tax heaven. Doc Holliday. Dementia Joe getting into a heated argument about policy with Conor McGregor and threatening to take him outside behind the woodshed to settle it. Lol. Somebody needs to AI that. That would be funny. Alan Tenaz. Conor McGregor is not wrong. Hail to him. No, he's right. Exactly. Ozzy's robots. Populations go through natural cycles. They use birth rates as a Trojan horse for globalist open borders. Black Plague happened and Europe survived fine. Yeah, the Renaissance was partially predicated on the population loss, actually, because it freed up so much land. Sebastian Monroe, video idea. You laughing while a sideshow of the Chaz Garden plays. Yeah, I'd be laughing too hard. It would overload the microphone, probably. Pumpkin Fire Crafts, a follow-up. Forgot to mention the coupon code is Clank Army. Thank you to all the clankers for their support. Yes, you can get all sorts of goodies. Sigil Stone, I wonder how all those IRA members, especially the ones still in prison, feel about Ireland trading the British for Klaus Schwab as their master. They must be so proud of the nation and its foggy dew. Yeah, I imagine that you're like an old school punk leftist that's serving, 30 years for throwing firebombs at British police or something like that, terrorism charges. And then the new left comes in, the youth left, and they want limitless immigration into Ireland to replace the population. Christ. Wasted bonehead. If the Irish vote Cullen in as president, it would be the best thing since Millet. Only Trump would top it. True. Swamp Donkey. In the West, they do not want ethnic whites to have any voice. There's a certain ethnic group that despise the European diaspora, denying this is stupid since they fund most leftist movements. I will leave it up to the viewer, of course, to flesh out that particular argument since I can't elaborate further. Wink, wink. Awesome Diesel. Think Stick, Sex, and Hammer is almost awesome as Diesel. Thank you. Swamp Donkey. There was a German minister that was celebrating that some German cities are minority German. Europe is a pile of dry grass near a fire. Like France, they had a terror attack and stopped 2 yesterday. Yeah, I saw that, the attempted terrorist attack. Dagnabbit32. Shout out to my Substack, Tales from the Final Frontier. Hungry Bone Dog. Just a note to Sigil & Co. I'm my own dog. Next news story. Israel has invaded southern Gaza now. We've got updated news as of this morning. We've got actually a lot of updates, but I can't get to them all because, I've only got so much time in the live stream. And actually this, I have to refresh the archive over and over because it's a live page. Israeli airstrikes hit 200 Gaza targets, the IDF says. So that's from, the horse's mouth. 3 Israeli soldiers killed in Gaza military operation. IDF expands Gaza ground operations as security chief vows to eliminate Hamas worldwide. So it's not just in Gaza or in Palestine now. They're going to eliminate Hamas worldwide. That would be difficult. I mean, you'd have to send Mossad agents out to assassinate thousands of people in other countries in the region. Because you certainly have Hamas sympathizers in places like Syria, Lebanon, etc., to an extent Egypt. Less with Egypt because of the nationalism, I think, there, though. They had a problem under the Muslim Brotherhood and kicked them back out. And that's sort of aligned with, like, the Hamas-style groups. Egypt, I think, is more immune than most countries in the general region to that kind of shenanigans. By the way, congrats to the Egyptian people for regaining your freedom and rebuilding your constitution through military force after Obama tried to overthrow your country and turn it into an Islamic state. Congratulations to you. Egypt has stood for thousands of years. Maybe it'll be the last man standing. I find that good. The IDF now is attacking southern Gaza. Here's the problem. You've already attacked northern Gaza and debilitated all the infrastructure, destroyed a bunch of buildings, et cetera, 15,000 dead, more or less. We're not 100% sure what the total is. So you've killed the population of a small city. You've leveled several small cities worth of buildings. The hospitals have no electricity, there's no water. The infrastructure is all cratered, basically. If you invade southern Gaza, the one area of Gaza you haven't already effectively leveled, where are people supposed to go? The problem is also if the IDF moves south and corridors have to be established, you would effectively have humanitarian corridors going through a ruined wreckage in southern Gaza that's currently being bombed in order to get to the population, which I suppose is supposed to move back north. I'm not sure logistically how this actually is capable of working. Just speaking strictly in logistic terms, if you're bombing the area in between where you want people to go and the area where the aid has to come in, I'm not sure exactly how you get it to them in large enough quantities without running grave military risk of accidentally bombing the ambulance, and not the one with the Hamas commander in the back, by the way, accidentally bombing the grain shipment, accidentally bombing the water truck. Israel is having a tough time, logistically speaking, right now. Maybe you should have invaded the South first or something, and then forced all the Northerners down into the charred remains, I guess. I don't even know what the strategy is at this point. Now they're saying that they want to destroy Hamas everywhere in the world, but you can't really operate outside of that general region. You don't have the force projection. You have the intel. Are you going to start assassinating people because of their liking of Hamas and they happen to be in another country? Are you going to kill American citizens or something? You're going to massacre a bunch of college kids? It sounds a little bit ominous, actually, what the Israelis are saying right now. What I've warned of is that while you may be justified, certainly, in retaliating when Hamas decides to haul off and hostage a bunch of people and kill 1,000 others, when the response is so lopsided and so protracted, and you're having issues even fomenting it, basically, logistic issues specifically, at some point the entire world turns against you. I mean, are we going to end up with the Battle of Megiddo or something like that and the Samson option? Who knows? Yes, Styx is a little bit blurry at the moment. My camera has issues. I wish that I could manually focus it on StreamYard. Unfortunately, while I can do that on my webcam when I'm recording a video, I can't do it on StreamYard. Let's see. Dat Pie over there. Welcome to Sticks Down. Due to delays last week, the inaugural title match will be done this week against Sigil and Wasted. Hungry Bone Dog. Why on earth is the right so darn defeatist? I don't know. I don't know why they're such cucks. Rockstar Podcast. Clanking is not just a morning activity, it's a way of life. Absolutely, I agree. Right now, I can't clank because, I needed a little extra caffeine kick. These things are great, by the way. Scott Steiner, the world's greatest ring announcer. The reason to resist anti-Second Amendment, prevent FUD paradise. Yeah, you want to have only bolt-action weapons and 100-year-old revolvers? Just vote FUD. In other words, vote for the Bush Republicans. Hungry Bone Dog, last one today. Are you a fan of Sam Hyde? I've heard a great deal about him, and I know that he's basically the biggest living meme, but I've never actually interacted with him, number one. And I don't 100% know the backstory about him, number two, actually. I don't get into the backstory of content creators and stuff. I just sort of watch videos and things. So yeah, Gaza has been invaded, the southern part of it as well. Again, it's not clear where people can evacuate to. You've already destroyed, 20-30% of all of the major buildings in the northern half. Where are people supposed to live? And if you do set up like a tent camp, I mean, that's fine, relatively speaking. How do you get aid to them while you're bombing the area immediately in between where they are and where the aid is coming from? It's not entirely clear. Let's see. Wasted Bonehead Sticks just wanted to say Johnny Rotten is based because someone said so in the comments. Also, respect to Bone Dog. Yes, Johnny Rotten is based. He remained loyal to punk as opposed to selling out like a fucking Green Day or something. Swamp Donkey. The Israelis did the USS Liberty, Levant affair, and have been caught stealing massive amounts of intel from the U.S., as well as U.S. nuclear triggers, actually, according to a 1984 Pentagon report that was only redacted and released a few years ago. They would 100% go after anyone they deemed fit. Well, they don't have the projective capability to nuke the U.S., but they do have the ability to Samson the entire region. So, gotta be cautious. Sigil Stone, Israel may actually be crazy enough to outright commit a genocide. Just yell Hamas, Hamas the whole time. And Bone Dog resisted taming, selects Shek in group with malicious intent. King of Biltong. Friday, someone asked if they could shout us out on Timcast. Not sure if they did a super chat on YouTube, but I could not find the message. Please shout us out anywhere you are present. We supply the meats. Yes, you should definitely try Anton's meat. Nice, sweet meat. Choke it down. I'm being flippant. No, it really is good. I will officially endorse Anton's Biltong, especially the bison. but that's because I have a soft spot for bison. It depends. The pork was really good too, and the Wagyu. Well, I mean, it was all good, but there's varying degrees of goodness. If you want something like sweet and a little bit looser, get the pork, I would say. If you want bison because you're like me and buffalo meat is great, then get the bison. If you want something a little bit more on the fancy side, the Japanese Wagyu, you can't go wrong with it. I think he's working on a Reaper pepper variant that's going to be like extra spicy. So, Awesome Diesel. How weird is it that no one was allowed to criticize? Yeah, I can't. I don't think that in that context I can say that on YouTube. But you probably know what group is being spoken of. We flipped instantly when the war started to lefties verbally attacking them. Yeah, it is funny how fickle the leftoids are. You know, you were a Nazi if you criticized Judaism a year ago, and now you're a Nazi if you don't criticize Israel vehemently. You know, people have some problems. As for myself, I'm not Team Israel or Team Palestine. I spurn Judaism and Islam as organized religions while appreciating the mystic side of them because I'm an occultist. And I have absolutely no skin in the game because I don't care what people in foreign lands do to each other unless it impacts me personally. I know the U.S. can say, well, you know, we must defend Israel because it's our ally in the region. Okay, I think that we're considering that they're a NATO member and host U.S. nuclear platforms, we can generally count on the Turks, right? Considering the fact that we own Lebanon lock, stock, and barrel, I think that we can probably count on them to stand aside if we had the need to. I have no problem with Jews. I have no problem with Judaism, in the mystic sense at least. It's an organized religion, I do. Any more than with Islam or with people who happen to practice the Islamic faith. I just don't give a fuck. I say leave them alone. Let them do their own thing. Not my problem. OMG puppies. Sam Hyde and his troupe did a great TV series, $1 Million Extreme Presence World Peace. Subversive comedy aimed at kids and adults. A BuzzFeed reporter got it canceled with false accusations. Not a surprise. Ellen Tenaz. I got accused recently of being a misogynist, but I always made my girlfriends come first and after. Well, good on you. That might be TMI for some people in the audience. I don't have a problem, but some people probably will. Wait for the moralists will crow about it. Next, we've got the final news story, and this one I just threw in because it's funny. I'm going to briefly talk about this. Missile used as garden ornament for 74 years, detonated by bomb squad. This is over in England, and there's one particularly funny aspect to this. Now, the bomb was primed. This did have an explosive inside of it. It's just that it was under explosive, like it didn't have much charge left inside of it. So it was dangerous, but not like massively dangerous. They ended up piling up like multiple feet of sand on top of it and detonating it, you know, off site. So, you know, it doesn't blow up the house. This was an old naval munition. It weighed 65 pounds. And apparently the old lady of the couple that owns the house apparently used to take her garden trowel, and I like this because it's related to gardening because they're using it as garden decor. You know, she's digging around in the soil, and she would tap it off on this missile that apparently they didn't know wasn't a dud. They thought it was just an interesting piece of garden decor that was on site, probably landed there during some bombardment and just never went off because it was underprimed or something. And I'm thinking about how lucky you are that you were hitting this artillery round basically on its nose with the metal trowel and it never went off and literally vaporized your home. Because even under charge, I'm assuming that a 65-pound munition probably would have done quite a bit of damage if it had gone off. I'd like to see the explosion from the bomb squad. They should really record that stuff. There's a lot of munitions actually from World War I and II in parts of Europe. There are even parts of the Netherlands, I think, that have some of them. But they're really common in England. You find blockbusters and Nazi munitions and English munitions and all sorts of weird shit. I mean, imagine you've got this 65-pound bomb in your backyard. She has it. There's a picture of it here. Link in the description. I mean, you can see it for yourself. It's propped up next to a couple of tropical plants and apparently was being used to clean off the trowel. I mean, it's really, really cool. Personally, I think, like, couldn't they have just drained the remnant of the explosive out of it and, you know, left it there in the garden since it was there for 74 years? I would have gone out of my way to do that. Like if I was the explosives expert on site, I'd say, look, we're going to look into whether we can totally defuse this thing, and then hopefully you can have your garden ornament back, just to say that I did so. But I just thought it's proverbially British. I mean, it's like a Wile E. Coyote skit, you know, banging the trowel off on the goddamn missile. The munition. I just thought it was so British. I couldn't help but mention that particular news story. By the way, please send no more super chats because we're running up on an hour here. You've paid me enough for my effort. OMG puppies. Oh, I did that one. I'm in the wrong spot. Musically assured destruction. I lived in D.C. for many years, and the mainline GOP here is set up like a country club, thumbing their noses at those people. I think that's the GOP in most of the country, actually. Yeah, it's an Acme munition. Exactly. I just thought that was so funny. And of course it would be in Britain. With the old lady. I'm imagining like an 80-year-old lady out in her garden all hunched over, and she's digging out the tulips or whatever. And then she's just banging on the side of the bomb. And then apparently like a cop eventually saw. It took him 74 years, by the way, to notice that this was a World War I munition. And the cop came by apparently and warned her that he was going to contact the bomb squad. And they were like, fuck, that sucks. We're going to stay here in the house, though, when they remove it, because if it goes off, we don't really care. Again, proverbially British. Very, very stoic. You removed my garden ornament. You're going to have to replace that. They're going to probably get a replacement for it, too. They should get, like, somebody should donate them an empty shell from World War II or something like that just to replace the one that they had to blow up. Let's see. Somebody's claiming that I missed super chats, but I don't think so, actually. I think I got them all. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go offline now. I will be live again tomorrow to the nearly 6,000 people that tuned in live. I thank you all. And I hope that you enjoyed the British munitions story, because when I read that, I was literally laughing out loud. We've got one more super chat. Sigilstone. Oh, you got a license for that garden gnome? Can't believe they took a garden ornament. Can't have shit in Birmingham. Anyway, yeah, I'll do some more British impressions maybe tomorrow. British news is always funny. I see crazy shit all of the time, especially with regards to old ladies banging on missiles with a metal trowel, and thankfully it didn't go off. So, yeah, don't get knocked up, kids, says Ben Dover. That's probably good advice. That's about all. Peace out.